You are born inside a palace where children inherit crowns, debts, and death sentences. Before you learn whom to trust, you learn what happens to people who trust the wrong person. Your name is Cleopatra. It means glory of the father. But the father whose glory you carry is a frightened king whose throne survives only because Rome allows it to survive. You were born around 69 BCE, probably in Alexandria, a city that appears to float between worlds. Greek philosophers argue beneath marble colonnades. Egyptian priests preserve rituals older than the kingdoms of Greece. Merchants arrive from Africa, Arabia, Judea, and India. Ships enter beneath the shadow of the Pharos, one of the greatest structures ever raised by human hands. Somewhere behind the royal walls stands the famous library, or what remains of the institutions associated with it, filled with knowledge gathered from across the known world. This should be the safest place on earth for a royal child. It is not. Your family descends from Ptolemy, one of Alexander the Great's Macedonian generals. For nearly 3 centuries, your ancestors have ruled Egypt as Greek kings while presenting themselves to the Egyptian population as pharaohs chosen by the gods. They marry siblings to protect the bloodline. They poison rivals to protect the throne. They turn family dinners into negotiations and bedrooms into battlefields. You do not grow up surrounded by relatives. You grow up surrounded by possible successors. No surviving record tells us exactly what your childhood feels like. But the history of your family tells you what you must have understood. A crown does not belong to the person wearing it. It belongs to the person capable of keeping it. Your father, Ptolemy XII, is mocked by some of his own subjects. They call him the flute player because of his love of music. Behind the insult is a more dangerous accusation. He is seen as weak. He borrows enormous sums from Roman financiers. He pays Roman leaders to recognize him as Egypt's legitimate king. Your kingdom is rich, but your dynasty is vulnerable, and Rome has learned that vulnerability can be converted into profit. When your father is driven from Alexandria, your older sister Berenice takes the throne. For a moment, the palace belongs to another daughter. You see what female power can look like. You also see what happens when that power loses. Your father returns with Roman military support. Berenice is captured. She is executed. The lesson is not whispered to you. It is displayed. Blood does not protect a daughter from her father. Royal birth does not protect a queen from defeat. Rome does not save rulers out of loyalty. Rome saves those who can pay. You begin studying the only weapons available to a girl who cannot yet command an army. Language. Memory. Ceremony. Psychology. You listen while diplomats speak as though you are not present. You watch priests change their posture when approaching the king. You notice which officials praise your father when he is strong and avoid his eyes when he is afraid. Later traditions will describe you as unusually educated and capable of speaking with foreign peoples without always relying on interpreters. Whether every claim is accurate matters less than what the pattern reveals. You understand that language is not decoration. It is access. When you speak to someone in the language of their childhood, you enter a room that weapons cannot open. You study Greek literature, philosophy, mathematics, administration, medicine, religion, and rhetoric. But the most important subject is never written on a scroll. You study power. You learn that Alexandria is not Egypt. The palace speaks Greek. Much of the country speaks Egyptian. Your ancestors have often ruled from behind a cultural wall, appearing before the people through priests, decrees, and sacred images. You recognize the weakness in that distance. If the dynasty is foreign, then you will make yourself familiar. If the throne is fragile, you will connect it to something older than the throne. You begin to understand Isis, the divine mother, protector, healer, and source of legitimate kingship. One day, you will not merely worship the goddess. You will allow Egypt to see her reflected through you. But you are not there yet. You are still a royal daughter walking through corridors where your sister's absence is more powerful than any warning. You are learning to smile without revealing agreement. To listen without appearing afraid. To remember every name. Your father believes he has recovered his kingdom. You understand something he does not. A kingdom recovered by Roman soldiers is no longer entirely yours. By the time you are 18, your father is dead. The crown passes to you and your younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. You are named co-ruler of Egypt. The palace bows. The priests prepare ceremonies. Your face appears on official documents. But behind the celebration, men who served your father are already calculating how to control you. You have inherited the richest kingdom in the Mediterranean. You have also inherited its debts, its enemies, its child king, and the attention of Rome. Your life as Cleopatra has begun. And the first people you must survive are not Romans. They are standing beside your throne. Before we continue, imagine being 18 years old and discovering that your own palace has become a prison. Would you compromise until you were safe, or risk everything before your enemies became stronger? Share your answer in the comments. And if you want to uncover how women exercised power behind the version of history written by their enemies, subscribe and stay with this story. Because your crown is already being taken from you. You are 18 years old when Egypt calls you queen. Your brother is around 10. Officially, you rule together. In reality, the arrangement creates a perfect opportunity for the men surrounding him. A child king can be guided. An 18-year-old queen with her own mind cannot. 3 figures emerge near the center of your brother's court. Pothinus, the powerful palace official. Achilles, the military commander. Theodotus, the tutor and rhetorician. They do not need to remove your crown immediately. First, they need to reduce your access. They control which petitions reach the throne. They influence the guards. They speak for your brother before he is old enough to speak with authority for himself. They present every independent decision you make as arrogance. Every alliance becomes suspicious. Every public appearance becomes a threat. You are not chained inside a room. A royal prison is more sophisticated than that. You can walk through the palace, but the doors lead where other people want you to go. You can issue orders, but officials may delay them. You can wear the diadem, but the soldiers answer to someone else. Your name begins to disappear from some official documents. Your brother's image moves forward. Yours is pushed back. The message is unmistakable. You may be queen by inheritance, but they intend to turn you into a ceremonial shadow. Outside Alexandria, Egypt is suffering. The Nile does not always rise as the people need it to rise. Harvest pressures deepen instability. Food distribution becomes a political weapon. The royal treasury must support the court, the army, the temples, and the enormous obligations created by your father's relationship with Rome. Every shortage becomes evidence against the crown. Every tax collector becomes the face of the dynasty. Grain is not simply food. Grain is power. Whoever controls Egypt's harvest can feed cities, finance armies, and influence Rome itself. This is why Roman leaders look south toward your kingdom with hunger disguised as diplomacy. They do not need to invade immediately. They can wait for the royal family to destroy itself. You understand the danger. Your brother's advisors understand it too. But they are focused on controlling Alexandria. You are thinking about ruling Egypt. That difference makes you dangerous. You appear to have taken a more independent role early in the reign. Decrees and coins reveal the struggle over precedence. You do not intend to disappear behind your younger brother's name. You have watched one sister become queen and die for it. You know hesitation does not guarantee survival. So you begin building relationships beyond the narrow circle surrounding Ptolemy. Officials. Commanders. Priests. Administrators. People whose loyalty may be uncertain but whose interests can be understood. You do not ask whether they love you. Love is unreliable. You ask what they fear losing. Position. Wealth. Protection. Access. A future under the next ruler. You learn to offer what your enemies cannot offer, A vision of stability in which Egypt is not merely divided among palace factions. But each move you make confirms what Pothinus already believes. You cannot be managed. The pressure tightens. Your brother's court begins presenting him as the true ruler. Rumors move faster than decrees. Perhaps you want to remove him. Perhaps you want to rule alone. Perhaps you have betrayed tradition. The accusations do not need proof. They need repetition. This is one of the oldest techniques of political power. First, isolate a woman. Then describe her isolation as evidence that she is dangerous. You are forced away from the center of government. The palace where you were raised becomes hostile territory. Guards who once lowered their eyes now watch your movements. Servants become informants. A conversation held near an open doorway may reach your enemies before sunset. You face the choice that defines your first transformation. Remain in Alexandria and allow yourself to be contained, or leave the capital and risk being labeled a traitor. Staying gives your enemies control over your body. Leaving gives them control over the story. You choose the body. You escape. The Queen of Egypt abandons her own capital because remaining would mean political extinction and perhaps physical death. You move east, toward the region around Syria and Palestine, where borders are unstable and soldiers can be hired by anyone with money, promises, or a credible claim to a throne. You are no longer surrounded by marble halls. You are surrounded by dust, military camps, and men who must decide whether an exiled young woman can actually win. This is the lowest visible point of your life. Your brother occupies Alexandria. His advisors control the machinery of the state. They possess the treasury, the palace, and the official voice of Egypt. You possess a royal name and the conviction that it still means something. Now you must turn that name into an army. You recruit supporters. You gather mercenaries. You negotiate with local powers. Every soldier who joins you is making a calculation. They are not following a legend. The legend does not exist yet. They are betting on a displaced queen whose family has a history of killing its own members. You must convince them that your return is more likely than your death. There is no romance in this stage. You learn how much loyalty costs. You learn how quickly promises change when payment is late. You learn that commanding from a throne and commanding from exile are different forms of power. A throne makes people obey your position. Exile forces them to believe in your future. By 48 BCE, you have gathered enough strength to confront your brother's forces near Egypt's eastern frontier. Two armies connected to the same royal house face each other. You are prepared to fight for the country you supposedly already rule. Then the wider Roman civil war suddenly crashes into your family's conflict. Pompey the Great, once one of the most powerful men in Rome, is fleeing after defeat by Julius Caesar. He sails toward Egypt expecting refuge. Your father had benefited from Pompey's support. Pompey assumes the royal court will remember. Ptolemy's advisors see an opportunity. They believe killing Pompey will please Caesar. So when Pompey reaches the Egyptian shore, he is murdered. His severed head is prepared as a gift for the man pursuing him. The calculation is cold. It is also disastrous. Julius Caesar arrives in Alexandria. He does not respond with the gratitude Pothinus expected. Now the most powerful Roman general in the Mediterranean stands inside your capital, surrounded by limited forces, demanding money from Egypt and announcing that he will arbitrate the dispute between you and your brother. Your enemies believe they control the palace. Your army remains outside. The sea routes are watched. To reach Caesar, you must enter a city that has orders to stop you. You cannot march through the gates as queen. You must return as contraband. You approach Alexandria under darkness. Somewhere beyond the water, the Pharos burns above the harbor. Its light guides ships toward the city, but you cannot arrive like an ordinary ruler. Your brother's men control the entrances. If they recognize you before you reach Caesar, the struggle may end without a battle. Later writers will turn this night into one of history's most famous scenes. They will say you were rolled inside a magnificent carpet and carried into Caesar's chambers. The earliest account speaks more cautiously of bedding or a sack used to conceal you. The exact object is uncertain. The strategy is not. You transform your greatest weakness into an advantage. Because you cannot enter openly, you enter in a way no one expects. You place your life in the hands of a loyal attendant. You reduce the Queen of Egypt to a hidden human body carried past armed guards. No crown. No procession. No priests. No army. Every symbol of royal authority is removed. What remains is your nerve. When the covering is opened, you stand before Julius Caesar. He is more than 30 years older than you. He has crossed Gaul, defeated Roman rivals, and survived the political machinery of the Republic. He is not shocked merely because a young queen has appeared unexpectedly. He is confronted by someone who has already demonstrated the quality he respects most, audacity. But you do not survive this meeting through spectacle alone. The popular version of your story will reduce your influence to physical beauty because that explanation is comfortable. Beauty makes power seem accidental. Seduction makes intelligence disappear. Ancient descriptions themselves suggest that your presence, voice, conversation, and ability to adapt to different people mattered more than any single physical feature. You do not need Caesar to fall helplessly in love. You need him to recognize that restoring you serves his interests. Egypt owes Rome money. Egypt supplies grain. Egypt sits at the center of Mediterranean and Eastern trade. A stable ruler who understands Roman power is more useful than a child king controlled by courtiers who have just murdered Pompey. You present yourself not as a desperate woman asking for rescue, but as the legitimate monarch capable of governing the kingdom Caesar needs to remain productive. By morning, the political balance inside Alexandria has changed. Your brother discovers you are inside the palace with Caesar. His reaction is explosive. He appears before the people, displaying his royal diadem and accusing Caesar of betrayal. Crowds gather. Alexandria is not a passive city. Its population has resisted kings before. Greeks, Egyptians, soldiers, merchants, sailors, and palace factions exist beside one another in a tense political environment. Caesar may be the greatest Roman commander alive, but in Alexandria he is far from his main armies. The city can become a trap. Caesar publicly invokes the will of your father and proposes that you and Ptolemy rule together. On the surface, this restores the original arrangement. In practice, it brings you back into government and destroys the monopoly of Pothinus. Your younger siblings are also drawn into the settlement. Cyprus is discussed for Arsinoe and the youngest Ptolemy. The palace becomes a chamber filled with royal children while armed adults prepare for war around them. Pothinus cannot accept your restoration. Achilles commands thousands of troops outside the city. Messages move between the palace and the army. Caesar discovers the conspiracy and has Pothinus executed. The conflict can no longer be contained by ceremony. Achilles advances on Alexandria. Your sister Arsinoe escapes the palace and joins the opposing army. She is proclaimed queen by the forces fighting Caesar. Now the war has become almost impossible to explain in simple terms. You and Caesar hold part of the palace district. Your brother is caught between factions and later joins the forces against you. Your sister claims the crown from the other side. Egyptians fight Egyptians. Greeks fight Greeks. Romans defend an Egyptian queen against an Egyptian king supported by an army that includes soldiers shaped by previous Roman campaigns. The palace prisoner has returned, but the palace is now under siege. Food, water, and control of the harbor become matters of survival. Caesar orders ships burned to prevent the enemy from using them. The fire spreads through parts of the waterfront. Later generations will blame this moment for the destruction of the Great Library, though the scale and target of the damage remain disputed. You do not have the luxury of knowing how historians will describe it. You smell smoke. You hear fighting near buildings that once represented the intellectual glory of your city. You watch war consume the world you hope to recover. This is the first terrible price of your return. To regain Alexandria, you may have to survive its destruction. Your value to Caesar increases, and so does your danger. If his relief forces fail to arrive, you will not simply lose a negotiation. You will be captured by the brother whose advisors drove you into exile. Arsinoe's position grows. She turns against Achilles and supports his removal. Even the army opposing you fractures from within. This is what your dynasty has become. Every alliance contains another rebellion. Every ruler stands beside a possible replacement. You remain close to Caesar, but you are not protected by the full strength of Rome. You are protected by a surrounded Roman force trying to maintain the harbor while waiting for reinforcements. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. The city that taught you philosophy now teaches you siege. You learn the sound of projectiles striking stone. You learn which corridors remain safe. You learn that royal posture must be maintained even when the people around you know you might not survive the night. Then Roman and allied reinforcements approach. Caesar breaks out to meet them. The conflict moves toward the Nile. Your brother's army is defeated. Ptolemy XIII attempts to escape across the water. He drowns, reportedly weighed down or trapped amid the chaos. He is still a boy. He was also the king whose name was used to remove you. When his body is found, the civil war has an answer. But victory does not feel clean. Your brother is dead. Your sister is a prisoner. Parts of Alexandria have burned. Roman soldiers helped determine who rules Egypt. You have recovered the throne, but the throne now stands in Caesar's shadow. You wanted freedom from palace control. Instead, you have become indispensable to the most powerful man in Rome. That may save your kingdom. It may also mark it for conquest. You return to the throne as Cleopatra VII, but Ptolemaic tradition and Roman convenience require another male co-ruler. Your youngest brother becomes Ptolemy XIV. He is still a child. Officially, you share power again. The men who controlled Ptolemy XIII are dead or defeated. Arsinoe is taken away as a Roman captive. Caesar supports your restoration. You are no longer the inexperienced queen whose name can be quietly removed from decrees. You have commanded supporters in exile, entered a hostile city in secret, survived a siege, and watched 3 rival centers of power collapse around you. Your new brother wears a crown. You govern. Yet your victory carries a contradiction. You have defeated the faction that tried to turn you into a puppet by accepting the military intervention of a Roman dictator. Your independence has been restored through dependence. This is the trap facing every smaller kingdom near Rome. Resist Roman power and risk destruction. Accept Roman power and watch it enter the palace. Caesar remains in Egypt for a time after the war. Ancient accounts transform this period into luxury and romance, describing journeys along the Nile and a ruler distracted by an exotic queen. The political reality is more important. Caesar needs Egypt stable. You need Roman recognition. Each of you offers the other something enormous. You give him access to the wealth, grain, and strategic security of Egypt. He gives you survival against internal rivals and external claims. Whether affection grows between you cannot be separated from the structure of power surrounding it. This is not a private relationship occurring outside politics. Your private life is now a geopolitical event. In 47 BCE, you give birth to a son. You name him Ptolemy Caesar. The Egyptian world will know him as Caesarion, Little Caesar. You publicly connect him to Julius Caesar. Caesar never formally establishes him as a Roman heir, and Roman law will not treat your son as you want it to. But in Egypt, the meaning is clear. Your child joins the blood of the Ptolemies to the most powerful Roman name alive. He can be presented as the future of Egypt and perhaps something greater. For you, motherhood is not a retreat from rule. It becomes another layer of statecraft. This does not make your love for your child false. It means royal motherhood cannot be separated from succession. Your ancestors understood queens as protectors of dynastic continuity. Egyptian religious imagery offers an even more powerful model, Isis safeguarding Horus, the divine son whose survival restores rightful kingship. You begin developing a public identity that connects your monarchy to Isis more strongly. This is not costume. It is political translation. In Alexandria, you are a Hellenistic queen speaking to diplomats, merchants, and Greek elites. In Egyptian temples, you are pharaoh, performing sacred obligations and sustaining cosmic order. You do not choose between Greek and Egyptian identity. You use both because Egypt itself contains both. That flexibility becomes one of your greatest sources of power. Your ancestors often appeared as Egyptian rulers in temple art while living culturally as Greek monarchs in Alexandria. You push the synthesis further. You seem willing to communicate with Egyptian subjects in ways that many earlier Ptolemies did not. The queen, once isolated inside a Greek-speaking palace, begins presenting herself as the ruler of the entire country. But Egypt is not healed simply because you have one. The kingdom faces financial strain, administrative disorder, low Nile floods in difficult years, and the scars of war. You must rebuild revenue without provoking rebellion. You must reward the officials who supported you without allowing them to become independent. You must manage temple networks whose cooperation connects the monarchy to communities far beyond Alexandria. You must reassure Rome while preventing Roman creditors from treating Egypt like property. This is the work later propaganda will erase. It is easier to describe you reclining at banquets than reviewing tax systems. Easier to imagine perfume than grain policy. Easier to repeat stories about seduction than confront the fact that you ruled for more than 2 decades during one of the most violent transformations in Mediterranean history. Your power does not come from enchanting one Roman man. It comes from surviving the space between Roman civil wars. Caesar leaves Egypt to continue fighting. You remain behind with a kingdom to govern and a son whose existence may carry both protection and danger. Then you travel to Rome. By 46 BCE, you are present in or near the capital, accompanied by your brother and co-ruler, and likely by Caesarion. Caesar installs a golden statue associated with you in the temple of Venus Genetrix. Romans notice. Some are fascinated. Others are alarmed. You are not a defeated queen walking in chains. You are a foreign monarch honored near the divine ancestor of Caesar's family. Your presence touches Rome's deepest fear: kingship. The Republic has built part of its identity around rejecting kings, even as Caesar accumulates unprecedented authority. You live in his villa across the Tiber and watch Roman elites approach him with praise while whispering about tyranny. You study a new palace, though Rome refuses to call it one. You see senators who possess armies, wealth, and family names older than current nations. You also see insecurity beneath their confidence. Rome presents itself as the ruler of others, but it is terrified of being ruled. You may imagine a future in which Caesar stabilizes the Roman world and your son inherits influence connecting Egypt and Rome. Perhaps you see a Mediterranean order in which Alexandria does not kneel. Perhaps you simply intend to protect Egypt by remaining close to the man deciding its fate. Then, on the Ides of March in 44 BCE, senators surround Caesar inside a meeting hall and stab him to death. The man who restored your throne collapses beneath Roman blades. The city erupts into uncertainty. You are a foreign queen inside Rome with a child you have declared to be Caesar's son. Caesar's will names another heir, his great-nephew Octavian. Not Caesarion. Not you. Suddenly, every honor you received becomes a liability. Every Roman who resented Caesar can redirect that resentment toward the queen associated with him. You leave Rome. The future you may have imagined ends in blood. You return to Alexandria carrying your son and a brutal understanding. Rome will not be stabilized by Caesar's death. It will fracture. And when it fractures, Egypt will once again become the prize that every side needs. You return to Egypt after Caesar's assassination with no guarantee that the Roman faction protecting you will survive. Ptolemy XIV, your younger brother and official co-ruler, soon disappears from the record and dies. Ancient evidence does not allow certainty about how. Later accounts and modern suspicions place the responsibility on you, perhaps through poison, but suspicion is not proof. What is clear is the result. Your young son Caesarion becomes Ptolemy XV and your new co-ruler. He is still a small child. For the first time, the male beside you on the throne does not represent a competing branch of the family. He represents your continuation. Coins, inscriptions, temple reliefs, and royal titles begin communicating a new dynastic structure. Mother and son. Isis and Horus. Queen and future king. You have removed, outlived, or defeated every arrangement designed to place you beneath a male relative. But ruling without an adult male rival does not make you safe. It makes you visible. Rome is falling into civil war after civil war. Caesar's assassins fight Caesar's supporters. Mark Antony, one of Caesar's leading commanders, struggles for control. Octavian, the young heir named in Caesar's will, moves with astonishing patience and ambition. Lepidus joins them in what becomes the Second Triumvirate, a legally empowered alliance that divides the Roman world and hunts its enemies. Lists of condemned Romans are published. Property is seized. Political opponents are killed. The Republic does not collapse in a single moment. It devours itself in stages. Egypt must survive each stage without committing too early to the side that loses. You possess something all Roman factions need. Money. Grain. Ships. Strategic access to the Eastern Mediterranean. You also carry the memory of Caesar and raise the child you call his son. That makes you useful and threatening at the same time. You cannot remain neutral forever. Neutrality is tolerated only when stronger powers do not yet need your resources. So you strengthen Egypt. You restore administrative control after the Alexandrian War. You manage the economy through difficult harvest conditions. Surviving decrees from your reign reveal a government concerned with taxation, privileges, exemptions, and the practical machinery of rule. This is not the Cleopatra Rome will preserve. Rome will preserve the woman at the banquet, the woman on the barge, the woman in the bedroom. Paperwork is less useful to propaganda. Administrative competence does not explain why a Roman general supposedly abandoned reason. So the governing queen must be erased and replaced by a dangerous seductress. But before that story is written, you are making decisions that affect millions of people along the Nile. The river remains the central pulse of the kingdom. When floods are sufficient, the land produces enormous wealth. When they fail, hunger spreads and political legitimacy weakens. You cannot command the Nile. You can control storage, taxation, transport, and distribution. You can decide which cities receive protection and which officials are punished. Every solution creates someone who believes they paid too much. This is power without spectacle. The daily negotiation between survival and resentment. You also deepen your connection to Egyptian religious institutions. Temple reliefs show Ptolemaic rulers performing the same sacred duties as pharaohs before them. The images are not simple portraits, they communicate order. The ruler presents offerings. The gods return legitimacy. Priests maintain rituals. The monarchy protects temples. In return, temples help translate royal authority into local life. You understand that Rome's influence is strongest among armies, financiers, and international elites. Your bond with Egyptian priesthoods connects you to something Rome cannot easily reproduce. An older political language. A sacred geography. A civilization that remembers empires before Rome existed. You appear publicly as the new Isis. This identity will later be distorted as evidence of vanity or theatrical excess. But the strategy is precise. Isis is not merely a goddess of beauty. She is the throne itself, the divine mother, the healer, the protector of the rightful heir, the intelligence capable of recovering what violence has torn apart. By connecting yourself to Isis and Caesarion to Horus, you convert motherhood into legitimacy and survival into sacred order. Your body becomes a political symbol, but it is a symbol you are attempting to control. Meanwhile, Roman armies fight the forces of Brutus and Cassius, two of Caesar's leading assassins. Questions arise about whether you supported them. Mark Antony later summons you to answer accusations that you aided his enemies or failed to support his side adequately. You understand what the summons means. It is not an invitation. Antony now controls much of Rome's eastern territory. He can threaten Egypt's status, impose financial demands, or support another claimant to your throne. Your sister Arsinoe is still alive, living in sanctuary at Ephesus. As long as she lives, Rome possesses an alternative queen. Any Roman commander dissatisfied with you can transform her into a weapon. You must meet Antony. But you will not arrive like a subordinate governor reporting to a superior. You have learned from your first encounter with Caesar that the beginning of a negotiation often determines its emotional structure. When you entered Caesar's palace quarters, you used surprise. With Antony, you will use anticipation. You delay. You allow his messengers to return. You make the Roman wait for the Egyptian queen. Then you prepare a meeting unlike anything he expects. You gather wealth, attendants, fabrics, music, incense, and light. Roman writers will call it extravagance. You understand it as theater in the oldest political sense. Antony has spent his life surrounded by Roman symbols of command. Eagles. Standards. Armor. Triumphs. You will bring him into another system of power. Not Rome conquering Egypt, but Dionysus approaching Aphrodite. A Roman general entering a world in which you control every sound, surface, and meaning. In 41 BCE, you sail toward Tarsus. Your vessel moves along the river beneath a gilded stern. Purple sails rise above the water. Oars keep rhythm with music. Attendants appear as figures from myth. Incense drifts toward the shore before you arrive. Crowds leave Antony's tribunal to watch. The Roman commander summons you. Instead, the city moves toward you. You were once smuggled into a palace hidden inside cloth. Now you arrive with an entire civilization as your stage. You do not meet Mark Antony as a frightened client queen. You receive him at a banquet. The arrangement matters. He expected to question you. Instead, he becomes your guest. The man who commands Roman provinces enters a space organized by your servants, illuminated by your lamps, supplied by your treasury, and governed by your timing. Ancient writers describe overwhelming luxury, but luxury is only the visible layer. The true display is control. You demonstrate that Egypt possesses resources Antony needs for his planned eastern campaigns. You demonstrate that you understand symbolism as well as he understands armies. You demonstrate that Caesar's death did not leave you politically orphaned. You are still queen. Antony is famous for military courage, appetite, generosity, volatility, and a taste for performance. He presents himself in association with Dionysus, the conquering god of wine, theater, and Eastern triumph. You meet him through the figure of Aphrodite or Isis. The symbolism creates a political language that neither of you needs explained. Roman historians will later reduce what follows to irresistible desire. But attraction alone cannot explain the negotiations. You need security, the removal of dynastic rivals, recognition of Caesarion, and protection against Roman annexation. Antony needs wealth, provisions, naval strength, and a stable Egypt behind his eastern ambitions. Your relationship may become intimate, but it begins with converging interests. You answer the accusations against you. Antony accepts your position. Then you make requests. Your sister Arsinoe remains at the temple of Artemis in Ephesus, protected by sanctuary but available to anyone who wants to challenge you. She had been displayed in Caesar's triumph and spared. Mercy toward a defeated princess has turned her into a permanent threat. Antony orders her execution. The killing at a sacred sanctuary shocks observers. Your last serious dynastic rival is gone. This is one of the darkest costs of your ascent. You once watched your father execute Berenice after recovering his throne. Now another sister dies after you secure yours. The pattern you inherited has entered your own reign. Perhaps you believe there is no alternative. Perhaps there truly is none. A rival claimant does not need to seek rebellion willingly. Others can use her name. In a world where Rome can manufacture kings, a surviving sister can become an invasion. You protect yourself by completing the violence that once taught you to fear your family. Antony follows you to Alexandria. The winter becomes legendary. Roman accounts describe feasts, games, disguises, fishing contests, and a society called the inimitable livers. Some stories may preserve genuine memories. Others may be crafted to portray Antony as a commander corrupted by Eastern pleasure. What matters politically is that he remains in Egypt rather than immediately returning to the Roman center. Alexandria offers him a vision of monarchy, abundance, learning, and divine kingship very different from the increasingly brutal competition of Roman politics. You do not merely entertain him. You show him what an alliance with Egypt can become. Yet you know Roman loyalty is temporary. Antony is married. He has Roman obligations. His position depends on soldiers and political arrangements beyond your reach. When he leaves, you remain. You give birth to twins, Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene. Their names invoke the sun and moon. Once again, motherhood expands the political map around you. These children connect the Ptolemaic dynasty to one of Rome's most powerful men. But Antony does not return immediately. For several years, your relationship is interrupted by Roman necessity. His wife Fulvia dies. To repair his alliance with Octavian, Antony marries Octavian's sister, Octavia. The marriage is diplomacy made flesh. Rome announces its solution. Antony will be bound to Octavian through a respectable Roman woman. You are expected to become an Eastern episode. You do not collapse. You rule. This separation reveals the part of your power least useful to legend. You do not spend the years waiting at a window. You govern Egypt through instability and environmental crisis. Evidence points to severe Nile failures and economic hardship during parts of your reign. Hunger does not care that you are Isis. Disease does not retreat before royal titles. You must reduce pressure where possible, maintain the state, and prevent desperation from becoming revolt. A queen can command soldiers. She cannot order the river to rise. This is the limit that exposes all political theater. The people judge divine kingship through material survival. Grain. Water. Taxes. Security. You continue minting coinage and asserting royal authority. Some of your coins present a strong profile with a prominent nose and firm chin, imagery shaped less by modern beauty ideals than by the visual language of Hellenistic kingship. You do not ask to be depicted as delicate. You present authority. Later generations will obsess over whether you were beautiful because they cannot imagine a woman commanding history without making beauty the cause. Your own political imagery suggests a different goal. Recognition. Continuity. Sovereignty. Antony's position in Rome becomes increasingly difficult. His alliance with Octavian is never truly stable because the Roman world cannot permanently contain two men claiming Caesar's legacy. Antony receives responsibility for the East and turns again toward the campaign he believes will secure his greatness, war against Parthia. To launch it, he needs Egypt. In 37 BCE, you meet again at Antioch. This time, you do not arrive merely as a queen defending herself from accusation. You arrive as the ruler of a kingdom Antony cannot afford to ignore. You negotiate territorial restoration. Lands in the eastern Mediterranean and regions connected to old Ptolemaic influence are placed under your control or economic authority. The details are complex, and not every territory functions in the same way, but the direction is unmistakable. Egypt is expanding. Your alliance with Antony is no longer private enough for Rome to dismiss as pleasure. It is redrawing maps. You provide funds and supplies. He recognizes your children and strengthens their position. You bear another son, Ptolemy Philadelphus. The family you are building is not simply Egyptian and not simply Roman. It is designed for a post-Republican Mediterranean world of linked kingdoms under your dynasty and Antony's military protection. To you, this may look like survival through expansion. To Octavian, it will look like the birth of a rival empire. You have reached the stage where survival is no longer enough. A kingdom that only survives between Roman civil wars remains vulnerable to the next Roman commander. You need depth. Territory. Allied rulers. ports, timber, metals, revenue. A political structure capable of preventing Egypt from becoming a province when Rome finally produces a single master. Antony needs victory in the east to match Caesar's reputation and surpass Octavian. You need Antony strong enough to protect your world but dependent enough to respect your position. The alliance contains love, ambition, calculation, and risk in proportions history can no longer separate. Antony launches his Parthian campaign in 36 BCE. It becomes a disaster. Supply problems, brutal conditions, failed sieges, enemy attacks, and retreat destroy a large part of his force. The commander who expected triumph returns diminished. Octavian's propaganda machine gains material. Antony is not invincible. Rome's eastern leader appears to have lost men, prestige, and direction. You could distance yourself. Instead, you meet him with supplies, clothing, and money. This act will later be described as devotion. It is also strategy. If Antony collapses, the territories around Egypt become exposed and Octavian grows stronger. Supporting him protects your investment in the eastern balance of power. Antony later campaigns in Armenia and captures its king. The victory is real, though it cannot erase the Parthian failure. He does not celebrate the triumph in Rome. He brings the spectacle to Alexandria. That choice changes everything. Roman triumphs are not merely parades. They are sacred political rituals tied to the city of Rome. By staging a triumphal celebration in Alexandria, Antony appears to transfer Roman glory into your capital. To his enemies, this is not cultural flexibility. It is betrayal. Then comes the event remembered as the donations of Alexandria in 34 BCE. You sit beside Antony on elevated golden thrones. Your children appear below you. Before the assembled city, territories are assigned and titles declared. Caesarion is proclaimed King of Kings and identified as the son of Julius Caesar. You are named Queen of Kings, ruling with him over Egypt and associated territories. Alexander Helios is connected to Armenia, Media, and Parthia, even where actual control remains aspirational. Cleopatra Selene receives Cyrenaica and Libya. Ptolemy Philadelphus is associated with Syria and regions farther north. To the crowd in Alexandria, this presents a dynastic future. To Octavian, it is a declaration of ideological war. Caesarion's identity is the most dangerous element. Octavian's entire position rests on being Caesar's adopted son and political heir. Your son carries Caesar's name through the claim of biological fatherhood. Roman law favors Octavian. Symbolism can favor Caesarion. If people begin asking which young man is the true continuation of Caesar, Octavian's legitimacy becomes vulnerable. You are no longer merely protecting Egypt. You are participating in the contest over who inherits the Roman world. That is the moment you become Rome's greatest female threat. Not because you have seduced Antony. Not because you wear gold. Because you offer an alternative political future. A future in which Rome does not absorb the eastern kingdoms but shares power with a royal system centered in Alexandria. A future in which Caesar's alleged natural son rules beside an Egyptian queen. A future in which Antony's children inherit territories through you rather than through Octavia. Octavian cannot debate this future on equal terms. He must make it appear monstrous. His propagandists begin transforming a Roman civil war into a defensive war against a foreign woman. Antony is described as bewitched, emasculated, enslaved, no longer fully Roman. You are described as intoxicated by luxury, plotting to rule from the capital, threatening Roman wives, Roman gods, and Roman freedom. The accusations work because they activate fears deeper than policy. Rome fears monarchy. Rome fears the East even while consuming its wealth. Rome fears women who exercise visible authority over men. By concentrating those fears in your body, Octavian can attack Antony without admitting that Rome is again fighting itself. This is the secret mechanism of the propaganda. If Antony remains a Roman commander with Roman senators and Roman legions, then Octavian is starting another civil war. If Antony has become the captive of Cleopatra, then Octavian is rescuing Rome from invasion. Your power is made sexual so that its political structure can be ignored. Your wealth is made decadent so that Rome's desire for that wealth can be hidden. Your foreignness is exaggerated so that Antony's Roman supporters can be treated as contaminated. Meanwhile, your actual position is more complicated than the propaganda. You are funding a coalition that includes Roman forces. You are contributing ships. You are protecting Egypt's sovereignty. You are also taking enormous risks with the kingdom's resources. Some of Antony's Roman allies distrust your presence. They fear that appearing beside an Egyptian queen confirms everything Octavian says. They advise Antony to send you away. But you understand the danger of leaving. If you withdraw to Egypt, you surrender influence over the campaign that will decide Egypt's future. You also surrender your fleet and treasury to a war planned by men who may sacrifice your interests for reconciliation among Romans. You refuse to disappear. This refusal is strategically understandable and politically costly. Antony's relationship with Octavia deteriorates. He sends her away. Octavian presents the rejection of his sister as a public humiliation and proof of your control. Then he obtains Antony's will, reportedly from the custody of the Vestal Virgins, through methods that violate Roman custom. He reads selected provisions before the Senate. The document is said to recognize Antony's children with you and request burial in Alexandria. Whether every public claim is accurate becomes almost irrelevant. The image is devastating. A Roman commander plans to be buried beside a foreign queen. Octavian has found the emotional weapon he needs. Rome does not formally declare war on Antony. It declares war on you. This is the masterpiece of the campaign against Cleopatra. A conflict between Roman rivals is legally transformed into a war against the Queen of Egypt. You began life as a girl inside a palace purchased with Roman support. Now Rome is mobilizing its world against your name. War does not begin when the first ship moves. It begins when the enemy controls the meaning of the ships. By 32 BCE, Octavian has already won the first battle. In Rome, you are no longer a monarch defending her kingdom. You are the foreign corrupter who has captured Antony's mind. Every Roman soldier fighting for you can be portrayed as fighting against his own civilization. Every Eastern ally becomes evidence of invasion. Every treasure you contribute becomes proof of decadence. Antony has respected commanders and experienced legions, but his coalition is divided by identity, loyalty, and suspicion. You bring a vast naval contribution and finance much of the effort. Your presence is militarily significant. It is also the center of Octavian's narrative. Some Roman officers defect. Others remain but distrust the strategy. Antony must command a multinational force while his enemies describe him as a servant in your court. You gather at Ephesus and move through the eastern Mediterranean. Ships, soldiers, animals, weapons, grain, and money must be organized across enormous distances. This is not the effortless luxury described in hostile poetry. It is logistics on the scale of empire. A fleet cannot survive on symbolism. Rowers need water. Horses need fodder. Soldiers need food. Hulls need repair. Disease spreads through crowded camps. Decisions delayed by one day can destroy plans prepared for months. Octavian's commander Agrippa attacks supply lines and captures strategic positions. His campaign is patient and effective. Instead of offering Antony the glorious direct confrontation he may prefer, Agrippa weakens the coalition piece by piece. Your forces settle near Actium on the western coast of Greece. The location becomes a trap. Heat, marshes, illness, shortages, and desertion erode strength. Octavian's fleet blocks escape routes. Antony's larger ships are powerful but difficult to maneuver. Agrippa's crews are experienced and increasingly confident. Councils become arguments. Should the army attempt to break north by land? Should the fleet force a passage? Should the heavy ships be burned to prevent capture? Should you return to Egypt? Every choice carries political consequences. Your treasury is aboard the ships. Egypt's naval strength is present. You cannot treat the fleet as Antony's property because it represents your kingdom's ability to survive after the battle. The final plan appears to involve breaking through the blockade with part of the fleet while preserving the treasure and reaching open water. The land army may then retreat or follow through another route. Later Roman storytelling will portray what happens as a queen suddenly fleeing in terror and Antony abandoning victory to chase her. That version is emotionally perfect for Octavian. The bewitched Roman sees the woman leave and forgets honor. The military reality is less theatrical and more tragic. The coalition is already weakened. A breakout may be the intended objective. But planned withdrawal and catastrophic defeat can become indistinguishable once communication collapses. On September 2, 31 BCE, the fleets face each other. Smoke rises. Oars strike water. Bronze rams turn toward wooden hulls. Archers and artillery fill the distance between ships. Your squadron waits behind the main line with sails prepared, unusual in a close naval battle but necessary for escape across open water. Hours pass. Antony's ships struggle to break the formation. Agrippa's forces open and close around them. Then a gap appears. Your ships move. You sail through the opening and head south. Antony leaves the battle line and follows with a smaller group. Behind you, much of the fleet remains trapped. Some fight. Some surrender. Some burn. Thousands of men watch the commanders vanish toward the horizon. Whether the maneuver began as the plan no longer matters to those abandoned in the chaos. The image will outlive the strategy. Cleopatra fled. Antony followed. Rome was saved. You sit aboard your ship after the escape, and there is no triumph in survival. Ancient accounts describe Antony isolated in silence, refusing to face you for days. The scene may be shaped for drama, but the emotional truth is believable. You have preserved part of the treasury and escaped capture. You have also lost the battle that determined the Mediterranean. Antony's land forces remain, but without confidence, supply, or a believable route to victory, they surrender. Client kings change allegiance. Commanders defect. Territories assigned to your children dissolve before they ever become real kingdoms. The titles remain. The power beneath them disappears. You return to Alexandria not as the queen of kings who frightened Rome, but as a ruler preparing for invasion. The speed of collapse reveals how much power depends on expectation. Before Actium, allies believe Antony may win, so they remain loyal. After Actium, loyalty becomes dangerous. The same rulers who accepted gifts and titles now send messages to Octavian. The same Roman senators who stood beside Antony begin searching for forgiveness. You learn the final law of coalition politics. People do not always abandon you when you become weak. Their abandonment is what makes the weakness irreversible. In Egypt, you attempt to create options. You may consider moving resources toward the Red Sea and escaping into another kingdom. Ancient reports describe efforts to transport ships overland, only for forces aligned against you to destroy them. You send messages. You negotiate. You test the loyalty of troops. You train Caesarion and prepare the children for uncertain futures. You continue public rituals because a ruler cannot announce defeat before the enemy arrives. But the palace now feels familiar in the worst possible way. Once again, you are surrounded by doors controlled by other people. Once again, men outside Alexandria are deciding whether you remain queen. The difference is that you are no longer 18. You have spent 2 decades learning every instrument of survival. Diplomacy. Language. Religion. Wealth. Motherhood. Theater. War. None of them can reverse Actium. Octavian advances through your territories. He is no longer the fragile teenager who inherited Caesar's name. He is a disciplined political predator who has removed rival after rival. Caesar's assassins are dead. Lepidus has been neutralized. Sextus Pompey is gone. Antony is the final obstacle. You are the story that makes Antony's destruction legitimate. Egypt waits for the Roman army. The palace prisoner has returned to her palace. This time, the prison is an entire kingdom surrounded by the future. Octavian enters the final campaign with patience. He does not need to rush. Each day weakens you. Each defection reduces Antony's forces. Each message he receives from frightened officials tells him where resistance will fail. You and Antony attempt to negotiate separately and together. You ask for the children to inherit Egypt. Antony asks to live privately. Octavian offers no settlement that preserves your real power. He may encourage private communication with you because mistrust between you and Antony serves him. Perhaps he suggests that your survival is possible if Antony is removed. Perhaps you allow the possibility to remain open because a queen responsible for children and a kingdom must explore every door, even one built by an enemy. This period will allow later writers to accuse you of betrayal. But loyalty is simple only for people who are not negotiating with extinction. Antony's emotional condition deteriorates. The commander once adored by soldiers now watches units disappear. He alternates between preparation, despair, celebration, and suspicion. You create a society called the Companions in Death, or something remembered by that name, transforming the expectation of defeat into ritual. Banquets continue. Music continues. Alexandria watches its rulers celebrate as Rome approaches. It may be denial. It may be courage. It may be political theater designed to prevent panic. As always in your life, the answer can be all three. You also build or complete a monumental structure near the palace, usually described as a mausoleum. You move royal treasure into it. Gold, silver, jewels, pearls, precious objects, documents. The wealth is leverage. Octavian wants Egypt intact. He wants its treasury. If you can destroy the treasure and yourself inside the monument, you deny him both the public spectacle of your capture and part of the prize of conquest. You begin experimenting with poisons, according to hostile and dramatic ancient accounts, seeking a death that is quick and does not disfigure the body. The stories may exaggerate cruelty and theatrical obsession, but they reflect a strategic reality. You know what Rome does to defeated monarchs. Arsinoe was marched through Caesar's triumph in chains. Other kings have been displayed before crowds, reduced from sacred rulers to objects in someone else's ceremony. You refuse to become the final decoration in Octavian's rise. In 30 BCE, Roman forces close on Alexandria. Antony attempts one last defense. At first, he gains a small cavalry success and returns with a flash of his former confidence. You embrace him in armor. Rewards are given. For one evening, the palace can pretend that courage still changes the outcome. The next day, the fleet and cavalry defect or collapse. The city is lost. Antony receives a report that you have died. Whether you sent the message intentionally, whether it arose from confusion, or whether later storytellers shaped the sequence is uncertain. He believes it. He attempts to kill himself with his sword. The wound is not immediately fatal. Then news arrives that you are alive inside the mausoleum. Antony is carried to you. The entrance has been sealed. You and your attendants lower ropes or cloth from an upper opening. The dying Roman commander is lifted toward you while his blood runs down the wall. It is one of the most brutal images preserved from the ancient accounts. No golden barge. No divine titles. No empire. Only several women struggling to pull the weight of a wounded man into a tomb. You receive him inside the chamber filled with treasure prepared for destruction. Antony dies with you. Later art will make the moment beautiful. It cannot have been beautiful. He is in pain. You are trapped. Roman soldiers are outside. The alliance that once redrew kingdoms ends inside a sealed monument before the kingdom itself has formally ended. You tear at your clothing and injure yourself in grief, according to Plutarch. Octavian cannot allow you to die yet. He needs the treasure secured. He may also prefer to display you in Rome. His officer Proculius gains access to the monument through a window while another Roman distracts you at the entrance. You reach for a weapon, but they seize you. The woman who once entered a palace through a concealed bundle is captured through an opening in her own tomb. The symmetry is almost too perfect, which is why it must be treated carefully. Ancient historians' shape lives into moral designs. Yet the essential fact remains. You are alive in Roman custody. Octavian enters Alexandria as victor. He visits Alexander the Great's tomb and honors the body of the conqueror who founded your city. The gesture communicates succession. Alexander created the Hellenistic world. Your dynasty inherited part of it. Octavian has conquered its final great kingdom. When invited to visit the tombs of your Ptolemaic ancestors, he reportedly declines, saying he wished to see a king, not corpses. Whether the words were spoken exactly that way, the insult captures his political message. Your lineage is over. His is beginning. Then you meet him. You are about 39 years old. He is in his early 30s. Two rulers shaped by Caesar face each other. You knew Caesar as ally and lover. You raise the son you claim Caesar fathered. Octavian carries Caesar's name through adoption and has built his legitimacy around becoming the avenger and heir. You attempt negotiation. Ancient writers give several versions. In some, you present accounts of your wealth and try to conceal part of it. In others, you appear ill, grieving, or still attempting to influence the victor. Roman tradition will insist that Octavian remains untouched by your charm, because his immunity proves his moral superiority over Antony. The scene is written to complete the propaganda. The dangerous queen attempts her final weapon. The disciplined Roman refuses. But you are not simply trying to seduce him. You are gathering information. Will he preserve your children? Will he allow you to remain in Egypt? Will he take you to Rome? You search his words, posture, and silences as you once studied officials in your father's palace. You realize he intends to take you alive. Perhaps a Roman officer secretly confirms it. You see the triumph before it happens. Crowds in Rome. Chains. Your children walking beside you. An image of Egypt conquered beneath Octavian's chariot. You have lost the kingdom. You still control whether Rome possesses your living body. That is the final territory left to defend. You prepare for death with the same attention you once gave to entrances. Your first great victory began when you controlled how Caesar saw you. Your last act will determine how Octavian cannot show you. You ask permission to visit Antony's tomb. According to the later account, you pour offerings and speak to him as the captive Cleopatra, imagining that you may soon be taken to Italy while he remains buried in Egypt. The words preserved by Plutarch were written long after the event and may be literary reconstruction, but the emotional position is real. You are alive inside the city you ruled, yet you are already a prisoner of another country. You return to your quarters or monument. You bathe. You dress in royal clothing. You eat a final meal. A basket of figs arrives, in the most famous version, concealing an asp. Other traditions suggest a poisoned instrument or prepared substance. No surviving evidence proves the exact method. Even the snake that became inseparable from your image may be part fact, part symbolism, and part Roman theater. The cobra is connected to Egyptian kingship through the uraeus, the protective serpent worn on the pharaoh's brow. Death by serpent transforms suicide into a final royal image. It is almost too symbolically perfect. But the uncertainty does not weaken the central act. You choose death before Octavian can turn your survival into a spectacle. Your attendants Iras and Charmian remain with you. When Roman guards enter, they find you dead or dying on a golden couch, dressed as queen. One attendant lies near your feet. The other struggles to adjust your diadem. A soldier asks whether this is well done. Charmian reportedly answers that it is very well done and fitting for the descendant of so many kings. Then she collapses. The exchange may be polished by literature, but it preserves the meaning of the scene. Rome has conquered Egypt. It has not forced Cleopatra to appear conquered. Octavian is furious, or at least disappointed, because your death deprives him of the living centerpiece of his triumph. He attempts to revive you in some accounts. Nothing works. He will still display an image of you, reportedly with a serpent attached, because propaganda requires a visible ending. But an image is not the same as a queen in chains. In August of 30 BCE, your reign ends. Egypt becomes Roman territory. The Ptolemaic kingdom that began after Alexander's empire fractured disappears after nearly 3 centuries. Rome acquires the grain, taxes, trade routes, minerals, wealth, and strategic security it had desired for generations. Octavian will soon take the name Augustus. He will present himself as the restorer of Rome while becoming its first emperor in all but the title of king. This is the final irony. Rome claimed to fight you because you represented monarchy. Your defeat helps create a Roman monarchy disguised as a restored republic. Caesarion attempts to escape or is sent away, perhaps toward the south or east. He is persuaded to return, according to some accounts. Octavian orders his death. The phrase later associated with the decision is merciless: too many Caesars are not good. Your eldest son, the child who might challenge Octavian's inheritance, is eliminated. He is around 17. The line joining your dynasty to Julius Caesar is cut. Your younger children with Antony are taken to Rome. Alexander Helios, Cleopatra Selene, and Ptolemy Philadelphus walk in Octavian's triumph beside an image of their dead mother. They are raised in the household of Octavia, Antony's Roman wife. The 2 boys disappear from the historical record. Cleopatra Selene survives. She marries Juba II and becomes Queen of Mauritania. Through her, part of your cultural and dynastic legacy moves west across North Africa. She names her son Ptolemy. Even after Rome declares your world finished, your daughter carries it into another kingdom. But Rome controls the first version of your memory. Octavian's poets and political allies transform the conflict into a moral victory. You become the mad queen, the drunken foreigner, the sexual threat, the woman who nearly enslaved Rome through a weakened man. Antony becomes less responsible for his choices because blaming you serves Roman masculinity. Octavian becomes the savior who restores order. The story is efficient. It hides the civil war. It hides Egypt's economic importance. It hides your administrative rule. It hides the possibility that Antony's alliance with you represented a serious alternative structure for the Mediterranean. It hides the fact that Rome declared war on one woman because naming Antony as the enemy would reveal another Roman war for personal supremacy. Centuries pass. Painters imagine your death. Playwrights reshape your love. Films recreate your beauty. Advertisers use your eyes. Empires project fantasies onto your skin, ancestry, body, and relationships. Each age creates the Cleopatra it needs. The temptress. The victim. The romantic heroine. The decadent queen. The nationalist symbol. The feminist icon. Beneath them all stands a more difficult woman to understand. A multilingual Hellenistic monarch who learned to govern an Egyptian kingdom under Roman pressure. A ruler who used religion, performance, motherhood, wealth, diplomacy, and personal presence as political technologies. A queen who made devastating choices inside a dynasty where hesitation could be fatal. A mother who built her children into a vision of the future and watched that vision collapse. A strategist brilliant enough to preserve Egypt's independence for 2 decades, yet unable to defeat the larger military and political machine forming around Octavian. You did not rise from palace prisoner to Rome's greatest threat because 2 Roman men loved you. They entered your story because Egypt possessed what Rome needed and because you refused to surrender it quietly. Caesar helped restore your throne, but you ruled after his death. Antony supplied military power, but your treasury supplied his war. Neither man invented your intelligence, your legitimacy, or your ambition. Rome did not fear your beauty. Rome feared the structure forming around your power. Egypt's wealth. Antony's armies. Caesarion's name. Your children's kingdoms. Alexandria as a rival center of the Mediterranean world. That is why the propaganda had to make your power appear sexual. If Rome admitted your real threat, It would have to admit that a woman had become the central political opponent in the final war that created the Roman Empire. You lose the war. You lose Antony. You lose Caesarion. You lose the kingdom your family ruled for generations. But Octavian does not receive everything. He does not receive your submission before the Roman crowd. He does not control the manner of your final appearance. He does not erase your name. More than 2,000 years later, millions know Cleopatra while the names of many men who condemned her survive only in footnotes. Your enemies capture Egypt. They write the first ending. But they cannot stop the world from returning to the question they tried to bury. What kind of power did Cleopatra truly possess? And perhaps that is your final victory. Rome took your throne. It never took control of your story.